Today, I am in the mood to talk about revenge and reparations because I think it's such an important topic, but it is one that is heavily glossed over for pretty obvious reasons, including the fear of being seen as a bad person or the anxiety of being perceived as an evil woman who wants to see men cry. And I find that pretty hilarious because we are already living in a world where women are not only being made to cry by men, but we are being made to lose our lives at the hands of men. We are also being made to live in a system where men are valued above women, including men's labour, being paid for more than women's labour. So that means that if a man and a woman are both employed in the same job role, there is a strong likelihood that the man will be paid more for the same amount of work and effort being put into that job. Similarly, we are experiencing, as women, living in a world where, because of men, we can't go out for a walk at night. We can't go out partying with our friends without having to make sure that we keep our eyes at the back of our heads when we're walking home. We have to make sure that if we encounter a man who maybe offers us something like a luxury trip or some sort of exciting date, if it goes wrong, suddenly men are the ones telling us, well, you should have known better than to just follow a man to a country you've never been to. So ultimately, women are experiencing being gaslighted whilst also being recipients of constant patriarchal violence. So it begs the question, are oppressed people entitled to revenge? Well, my answer is yes, but I want to preface this conversation by making it clear that I am in no way necessarily encouraging women to actively go and recreate violence towards men. What I am saying, and I want to make it clear what I'm saying, is that there are different ways to carry out revenge. And sometimes, once in a while, revenge is justice. So there are multiple ways to access justice. And if you are a woman who considers herself a feminist, or if you're a woman who doesn't even consider herself a feminist, but does live a life that prioritizes you putting your needs first, especially when it comes to dating men, then this conversation is probably going to resonate with you in one way or another. Now, I want to make it clear, which I believe I've said this before on this podcast and in other interviews or panel discussions or talks I've done, that not everything a woman does necessarily has to be feminist or will necessarily inherently be feminist, but there are some things that you're going to just have to do to put your own well-being first, and you don't have to prioritize other people's acceptance of that for it to be considered a good thing or a useful thing for you. So to explain that further, it could be argued by many feminists who occupy the online space mainly that the work I do through this podcast is not feminist because I am not promoting an idea of equality between men and women. Rather, my ideology is rooted in the belief that women deserve a lot more and women should be taking our things back. And that does not align with the idea of equality between men and women, because when we observe what that equality between men and women should look like, essentially it's reflected in what most modern relationships kind of look like, where we're seeing the whole bill splitting thing and we're seeing this sort of interesting overcompensation that a lot of modern women are doing in their dating lives with men, where they are the ones that are financing their male partners. They are the ones that are sponsoring men through life. They are the ones who feel a responsibility to cater to men's emotional needs and their shortcomings because it feels feminist to help men deal with problems that they themselves are unwilling to confront. And for me, that does not resonate with me. And I don't feel like my feminism has to prioritize men. I don't even think that my feminism has to even make men feel comfortable, because when you look at what justice, liberation, or even a revolution looks like, well, for there to be a revolution, there needs to be something people are moving against in the first place. People are revolting against something, usually a system that has been put in place against their well-being. So we are living in a renaissance where women have come to a decision that they want to see better for themselves. So we are revolting against a society that has been built on a system where men make us feel like we have to pander to them, we have to prioritize them, and we need to put them first above ourselves. And so in any kind of revolution, the oppressor will usually be inconvenienced. That's the whole point, because the person who is oppressed is experiencing perpetual inconvenience at the hands of their oppressor. And that oppressor's comfort, luxury, and general ability to just move through the world on their own terms comes at the expense of that oppressed group. Women are an oppressed group. Black people are an oppressed group. Within the group of women, there are black women. Within the group of black people, there are also black men. But when we just extrapolate all of that and focus on being a woman, well, I personally am of the belief that for women to experience true liberation, men are going to have to be inconvenienced and disappointed, just like for black people to experience true liberation, white people are going to have to be inconvenienced and disappointed, because white people's liberation and white people's ability to live in a world where they're never going to be oppressed for being white comes at the expense of black people, our labor, our lives, our general well-being. Similarly, for women to be able to exist in a world where we are free to just be empowered and live life on our terms and date men who make us feel good, we are going to have to disappoint and upset men, because men exist in a world where they are of the belief that they're entitled to us. So when you keep that theory in mind and then you consider what revenge can look like for women, it's quite hilarious, because what most people's mind goes to when we talk about women getting revenge on men is women enacting physical violence on men, when given that feminism, where it's at right now, is still very much pandering to men, what I would consider an entry-level form of revenge against men is simply choosing to not date men who can't do anything for you, because a lot of men see that as an act of violence towards them. Like, you having boundaries and standards is seen as you essentially being violent towards men because they feel entitled to you. And when you really sit with that information and really deep it, doesn't that make you see men in a way where you don't want to just be willing to give yourself to them anyhow? And when I say give yourself to them, I mean giving them your time. I mean giving them access to your body. I mean giving them resources that are coming out of your own limited resources, aka your money. So, you might be wondering, how am I, Chidi, Slumflower, seeking out my own revenge towards men? And you probably know what I'm going to say, because I've spoken about this quite a few times on this podcast. But one of the ways that I get my revenge in a very wholesome way, and thankfully, ironically, this form of revenge is actually mutually beneficial for both parties, being me and the men involved. But how I get my revenge against men is my involvement in femdom, i.e. being a dominatrix. I'm not going to spend too long talking about being a dominatrix, because I feel like I talk about this all the time and I really don't want to bore you. I also don't want to come across as the dominatrix evangelist, but it's important context here, because why I feel very drawn to that lifestyle, I call it a lifestyle, why I feel very drawn to that lifestyle is because I feel like I get to experience a microcosm of what the world should be like for women if we are going to be sharing a planet, unfortunately, with men. So, to expand on that further, what I mean is, as a dominatrix, I feel like I've been able to experience a newly repaired relationship with men. And why I say that is because becoming a dominatrix has allowed me to develop very trusting and quite usually exciting atmospheres with men who either I've literally just met them when we're in like an event together that is specifically for like BDSM, or just men that I've known over a period of time who have just wanted to be of service to me in some way. I find it very beautiful and very delicate having that kind of relationship with a man, because that person, the man, is leaning into a vulnerable side of himself because he's aware that you have power that he's never going to have, and he just wants to be given whatever amount of it that you are prepared to share with him. And so that usually means that for that man, he enjoys the feeling of being rewarded, and between you and him you get to create your own reward system. This sounds like I'm in Sainsbury's and we're talking about a nectar card. But like, by reward system I mean, like, for some people, for some men, a reward is, you know, letting them rub your feet. Another reward could be that the next time you go to a dominatrix centered event, he gets to come with you. You know, you create your own dynamic between the two of you where you know what he enjoys. Similarly, you know what he doesn't enjoy. And those things can be, you know, within consensual grounds, those things that he doesn't enjoy can be punishments. But to get back to the theme of revenge and being a dominatrix and why those two themes line up for me, is because, yes, I do believe in a world where men are of service to women. And I personally, at the same time, believe that not everybody is going to want to embody that idea. That includes men and women. I don't think every single woman has the desire to be a dominatrix, and that's fine. I also don't think every single man, even if that man is genuinely attracted to women and loves women in his life, I don't think every single man is going to enjoy or want to be a sub, and that's okay. Where I do think there's an exciting middle ground, and this is something that I like to explore in my more vanilla relationships with men, is that I've always said I don't necessarily believe a guy has to be a sub for me to date him, but I've always felt that if that guy has tendencies or curiosities about the lifestyle I enjoy that I've just described, then I would be more likely to give him a chance, because usually it means that I'm able to still enjoy the elements of doming that I enjoy without the whole relationship being this like very clean cut dom and sub thing. Like, I don't even know if I would actually date a guy who's a full-on sub. And it's not because I don't respect him. It's not because I don't think he'd be a great candidate if he's a man that, you know, ticks all my boxes. It's usually just because I would have to have developed such a strong rapport over a long period of time with that guy who's a sub that me dating him would be the ultimate experience that he has worked super hard for. But outside of that, it could be argued by those who are in the vanilla world, who see dominatrix thing as this weird, evil, cold, apathetic thing. Oh my goodness, spooky. It could be argued by those who are super vanilla that being a dominatrix is revenge, because you get to whip men, obviously with their consent. You get to talk down to men. You get to make men your little bitch. And to me, it's fun. I enjoy it. It's not something I'm looking to do every single day. Like, you know, there are these misconceptions people have of women like me that like every day we're just out here just being mean to men. Like, it's not the case at all. But I do like to remind myself that there are alternative ways to interact with men and still enjoy the things that you would otherwise enjoy if you were interacting with vanilla men. And I do believe men owe women reparations. I do, 100%, babe. I fucking do. And, you know, if we are able to discuss that white people owe reparations to black people because of colonialism, because of racism, because of white supremacy, and the ways that a lot of them who are born into generational wealth, that wealth literally came from plantation money or from, you know, them receiving payouts when the slave trade was ended, and other insidious ways that they've made money off of black people's suffering. if we can agree that white people owe black people reparations because of that imbalance in the power dynamic, then similarly, we can agree that men owe women reparations. But I feel like this is a big stumbling block for a lot of people because they just don't understand that. And where I think the lack of understanding is more prevalent is when we're discussing dynamics in the black community, like in an intra-communal context. A lot of people hold the belief that black men can't be oppressors towards black women, when I think most of us know that that isn't true, but we just choose to not believe it because it feels like you are betraying your own by being honest about those realities that are not just backed by statistics, but I think if you're a black person and you're listening to this, whether you're a black man or a black woman, you know at least one black woman who has experienced violence at the hands of a black man, whether that is sexual assault or actual battery or just being catcalled or just generally experiencing misogynoir. And if you're not familiar with what misogynoir is misogyny aimed at black women, and misogyny is the hate of women put into action through microaggressions and macroaggressions. So microaggressions could be things like getting catcalled, and macroaggressions could be things like literally being physically assaulted for being a black woman, and being sexualized at the same time. And I do think black men owe black women reparations, and I don't think those reparations are going to be given anytime soon because that reparative justice, it's not something you just sit there and wait for. It's something that you demand. And it's not like me dating men just means that I'm just demanding justice from them, but rather it's a mutually understood undertone that will be in that relationship. And I've come across many black men who get it. Like they don't be arguing with me when I when I say that they owe me reparations, because the reparations isn't just money. It includes money, but it's not just money. Sometimes reparations is just like doing favors for black women that make our lives easier. That includes, but is not limited to, running errands for a black woman in your life. Also includes maybe paying a bill or two for a black woman in your life. Would also add to the list maybe buying lunch for a black woman in your life without expecting anything. All of these things I'm saying, all of these gestures of reparative justice should not be done with the expectation to receive something in return, because this is about repair. This isn't about sexual favors. But what's interesting is that I think a lot of women feel bad about asking men for stuff, which is so jokes, because it's like, you feel bad about asking your oppressor for stuff. Think about that sentence. Think carefully about what you are implying by feeling guilty about making men work harder to have access to your body. You feel bad about which part? Is it the part where he has to put in effort that will come as a sacrifice for him? Is it the part where he might not get every single thing he wants just because he's put in the effort? Which part is it that you feel bad about? Because that's something to sit with and confront with a lot of concentration. And the reason I say that is because so many women every day hand their power away because they're scared of being seen as not feminist. They're scared of being seen as bad women. But I just want to know what feminism has done for you so far. Like, if you could just answer quickly, because we managed to get to the stage thanks to our foremothers. We've managed to get to a stage where, we can now vote. Yeah, we can now go to work. But that's what white women wanted. You lot wanted to go to work, innit? Like, I didn't say that I wanted more work. Do you know black women have been working without being paid for centuries. That was called slavery. I don't know a black woman who would have gone out to go and ask if they could just have more time to work and be underpaid or unpaid at all. That's white women's liberation. Now, of course, I'm also aware that the reason that white women wanted to be able to work is because it would have allowed them the opportunity to make their own money and feel empowered. Now, for me as a black woman, and for many other black women, I don't find labour empowering. because I'm already used to being overworked, and black women know very much so that even after we've clocked out of work, we are still working, whether it's on correcting other people or whether it's doing emotional labor for other people who refuse to do the work. And that includes for the men in our lives. I mean, not me though, because I don't keep men around me who I have to do significant amounts of emotional labor to educate. That's just not something that draws me close to them. Usually those men get put in the outer circle of friends who they're the people that if I have to be correcting them or educating them or essentially just dipping into a version of myself that has to carry out labor to keep them on the same level as me, those are people that I'll probably just party with. And even then, I don't even party that much. So really and truly, I feel glad to say that there isn't a man like that in my life at the moment. And I hope it stays that way. But I do believe strongly that a lot of women are scared of asking for shit because you're scared of being seen as what, non-virtuous, or what is it, vapid or gold digger. Okay, but you need to tell me what being seen as a good feminist, well-behaved, virtuous, taking care of men, ass women is done for you. What's it done for you? Because most people who are doing that, who are, working out of their own energy reserves. Like, you're beyond depleted at this point, yeah? You're now working from the reserve, the energy reserve in your body. You're now doing that. And you mean to tell me that you insist that you're happy? I don't believe you. And the reason I don't believe you is because have you met married women? Like, have you heard the stuff that married women be saying? And of course, when I speak about married women, I'm not speaking about all married women, but I'm speaking about the general consensus here that we've been hearing for years and years and years about how marrying men is so draining, like having to pick up socks on the floor, having to, unload the dishwasher because he refused to do it because he's falsely incompetent. Oh, he just doesn't know how to do it. So you're telling me that you married, not just living with, you married a man who doesn't know how to load/unload a dishwasher, but he has a PS5 and he plays FIFA. So he understands the concept of learning a set of buttons and commands to create certain outcomes from pressing those buttons, but then he doesn't know how to do the same thing on a device like a dishwasher that also has buttons that create outcomes when you press those buttons. Outcomes including washing the plates, or outcomes including opening the dishwasher from pressing said buttons. And you believe that? And you're married to that man and you've convinced yourself you're happy? Because what married men who love to feign incompetence do is they will just act like they are terrible at doing it when they finally get round to doing the thing you've been hounding and pleading and nagging for them to do. And they do it to such a poor standard that you have no choice but to do what? Do it yourself. See? That's how they reverse psychology trick you into doing that. And it's so basic and it's so easy. Like, if I was a guy and I was born into a system like patriarchy that we're all living in, where not only will I have a woman living in my house whose tits I can grab when I feel like it, but also, you mean to tell me she can also double as a maid for me, and she'll cook for me, and she'll raise my children, and she'll listen to all my problems, and she'll mommy coddle me, and she'll make me look good in public? Wow. Honestly, when I die and I reincarnate, I'm coming back as a man. I just need to experience what patriarchy is. I need to know what this must feel like, because for me as a woman who, whether I'm empowered or not, I'm still going to encounter patriarchy. For me as a woman, I'm just bored. This is boring. Like, when you hear married women complaining about what they're tolerating, it's like, marriage ain't all that. And did you know, statistics have shown, and these can be looked up in the blink of an eye on Google, statistics have shown that women actually benefit from being single and men don't. Those same statistics, articles, and discussions also show that men benefit more from marriage than women do. Men actually have longer life expectancies as a result of being married, and women have shorter life expectancies as a result of being married to men. Whereas when women are single, the only people who benefit from women being single are women. Men being single actually reduces their lifespan. I wonder why men being single reduces that lifespan. What's the missing component in a man's life that would increase his lifespan? Trying to guess. What could it be? What could it be? A woman. So men need women more than women need men. And you know what? Patriarchy wouldn't exist if women weren't powerful, because you wouldn't have to oppress someone that has no power, right? Surely the point is, if you know something is powerful but it has the ability to run away from you, then you'd create measures and boundaries and systems in place that keep that powerful thing confined so that you can extrapolate the benefits from that powerful thing. And that's what happens to women time and time and time again. And yet, you still find women being like, yeah, but I feel guilty. Which part do you feel guilty about? Because if men had the level of guilt, self-awareness, and shame that women feel for putting ourselves first, like, what would the world look like? Like, what would the world look like if men felt guilty about pretending to be incompetent about loading a dishwasher? What would the world look like if men felt embarrassed about feeling emotional incompetence when it comes to accountability? What would the world look like if men took ownership of how much they ignore the world around them and only choose to involve themselves when they feel that there's a benefit? What would the world look like? Because for me, it's like, yes, we're talking about revenge and reparations, but I don't even consider holding men accountable revenge. Like, we haven't even gotten to the revenge part. We're not even anywhere near there yet. Like, we're at the part where we're actually just seizing the pussy. Like, put the pussy back in the box and put it in storage, because they don't know how to behave well anymore. And why I say we have to seize the pussy and put it away in storage is because we are living in a world where we are essentially, as women, being told that for men to have better mental health, we need to give men more access to our bodies. That's what this all boils down to. That to me is weird, because if you as a person, if your mental health relies on somebody else giving you access to their body, then that's not true mental well-being. Because if that person decides to revoke access, are you going to relapse? Like, what's going to happen to you? Like, I would love to see it. Like, I would love to see it. What would happen to men if, like, we all just stopped fucking them? They would probably, unfortunately, murder us. And that proves the point then that, like, patriarchy is very real. But similarly, it proves my point that misandry isn't real. And there are women in the world whom I identify as misandrists. For those who don't know what misandry means, misandry apparently is the hate of men. But nobody can show me how men are systemically disempowered or marginalized as a result of misandry. You have to just quickly show me one man who has experienced a loss of his privilege because of misandry. Quickly, let me see. I'm waiting. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nobody showed me anything. Because I get called a misandrist all the time. Apparently, according to many YouTube comments and comments under my Instagram posts where I share real snippets from this particular podcast, apparently I am the female equivalent to he who shall not be named, but his first name begins with A and his second name begins with T, and we will not be naming him on this podcast because he is a bellend. But apparently I'm the female equivalent to him. So I'm the female equivalent to somebody who has been arrested on strong suspicions of sex trafficking women and creating courses sold to incels on how they can best leverage patriarchy and misogyny to essentially manipulate and abuse women into dating them. I'm the equivalent to that. How? Please. Somebody has to tell me, because I usually get men saying that. And it's because men are just, when they see women like myself, their instinct is to try and position me as a danger to society. Because yes, the most dangerous thing a woman can do is what? Seize the pussy and encourage other women to do the same. Like, men have really not had to do that much work for pussy. Even the ones who are generous, wealthy, chivalrous gentlemen, yeah, in minority, they may have had to work to gain a woman's trust enough for her to open the nyash. But speaking generally across society, men don't have to work that hard for something that you'd think that their whole lives rely on. I mean, their lives clearly rely enough on it for them to constantly be in women's business, telling us that we are gold diggers and we're going to be lonely and that we're never going to find a man because we've decided to have self-worth. When really, they're they're all projecting. Like, do you know what the scariest thing for a man to be is? It's not dead, but single. The scariest thing for a man to be is single, because what is a man without a woman? Especially if that man is attracted to women and that man feels like he is entitled to women's labor and sex and attention and emotional upkeep. Like, men are actually done out. And the fact that I'm being compared to somebody who is a serial misogynist to extents where he has physically laid his hands on women goes to show that, yeah, it's seen as extremism to not want to experience violence at the hands of men anymore. And if you're not paying attention and you as a woman are still just like letting men have their way with you, that's on you. That's not nothing. Y'all be safe. Not me though. I'm not doing that. I've chosen to use my life for more important things. I've chosen to allow my life to be a site for self-preservation. And if I am going to be engaging with men, then let it be fruitful, let it be beautiful, let it be beneficial, because I don't see why that would disempower or marginalize a man by me saying that I deserve good treatment, especially given the circumstances we're living in where men are desperate. They're desperate for pussy. It's so laughable, and they're embarrassed about how desperate they are, which is why they be all up in our comments section trying to make us feel scared about don't be too empowered now. All right, you guys are taking this women's empowerment thing too far now. All right, can you stop doing that, please? Because who's going to sleep with us? Which is why I love that I'm in the position I'm in, where I get to do this work. And, you know, I'm wearing boots that not many people can fill, because most women are, one, scared, for very valid reasons, unfortunately. Scared of experiencing misogyny as a result of being outspoken and proactive in trying to encourage other women to have some self-worth and actually act on that self-worth. A lot of women feel anxious about not being articulate enough, because the ways that men try to talk you out of your own ideology is to try and argue you out of it, which is why I believe you stop telling men you're a feminist. Just stop telling them that. Because usually what they want is to create a scenario where they can get into an argument with you about your feminist ideologies, and they're not engaging in that conversation from a place of wanting to combine and compare different ideas and land at a place where there is progression or at least open discussion, even if you don't agree with each other. No! They want to try and argue you out of your own self-worth so that you feel stupid for having those beliefs because you couldn't back the beliefs up. That's why it's like, don't be arguing with these men. If they even want to argue about feminism, that tells you then that that's not someone you should be offing your pants for. Your liberation is not up for debate. Similarly, I also don't believe that you should tell men that you're feminist, because I've said it before on this podcast before, and I will say it again. When you tell men that you're feminist, what's the first thing they do if there's someone that just wants to sleep with you? They rush to agree with you. They rush to agree with whatever you say. Yeah, wait, yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Bell hooks. Yeah. Red bell hooks. Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally agree. Because pandering works. If a man is pandering to your beliefs and is echoing them, audibly echoing them, you're going to be turned on by that. You're going to be like, oh my God, this guy's a feminist too. Like, he believes within our people. That's so hot. And he read bell hooks. All about love. Like, okay, and what else? And what else? What does he do about his feminism? What does he do to make the world a safer place for women like you who he wants to sleep with to live in? What does he do about it? Because it doesn't start and end at him just saying that he agrees that women are people. What does he do to put that belief into action in such a way that you feel those effects? Does he call out other men when he sees misogyny in action, even though he knows that calling out those men will create discomfort and probably a ripple in the friendship? Or does he keep quiet and tell himself that, boys will be boys, and even if I say something, I can't change the world anyway, so what's the point? But I thought he's a feminist. Because feminism is not just saying that you have these ideologies and then that's it. It's like, yeah, but those ideologies have to become the fabric of your being. So that's why, whilst I would still say that I'm a feminist, I know that a lot of people, including women, will not agree that I'm a feminist, and that's fine. But black women are allowed to define their liberation on their own terms. So if feminism is about the liberation of women, especially in a patriarchal world that men benefit from, then there are black women who are allowed to define their own feminism, especially when their definition of feminism includes them only making themselves available to men they're attracted to who actually want to be of service to them. Because for me, yeah, equality is a fun conversation to have, but I'm big on equity because equality is like, okay, that's nice, it sounds nice, but we're not starting out on an equal footing in the first place. So it's never going to even out by just suddenly dumping equality into the conversation when we've never been equal to men. And also, I don't believe a man can be equal to me. Like, it's okay, innit? Like, it's okay to accept that men are never going to be as poised, powerful, delectable as you are. Like, yeah, a man can be great, but he's not a woman. He's not me. And that's okay. But what I'm not going to do is make my feminism about playing catch up with men and like trying to get men on board. Like, if you don't want to see a world where women are liberated, then get ready, innit? Get ready to just be passed up on. No one's going to fuck you, because watch and see, the world will get to a place. I pray in my lifetime I get to see some of it. The world will get to a place where women realize that what we're doing is just not working. Like, feeling sorry for men is not productive for you. Like, especially if that man's doing nothing about his life and he's essentially just dumping his problems on you, that's going to get tired very, very soon. And then women will become a lot more headstrong in what they are willing to accept and what they're not willing to accept. And that, for me, is a very, very important tenet of feminism that has been underexplored, just like the ocean. What's the percentage of the ocean that humans have explored? Isn't it like 4% or something? So we have only explored 4% of the ocean. I similarly believe that we have only explored 4% of our power as women. And I know 4% sounds like such a specific stat, like not 5, not 10, but 4. But I do feel like there's something interesting about the parallel between exploring the ocean and exploring your own power as a woman. Because remember that we've never known a world that isn't patriarchal. So similarly, we're never going to know a version of ourselves that isn't existing in response to the fight or flight that comes from having to survive patriarchy. So when someone asks you, what would the world be like without patriarchy, you will stumble on trying to answer what that looks like, because I too don't really know how to envision a world where I'm not having to protect myself from male violence. But I can envision a world where I get to create my own happy ending using what's available to me, including the men that are attracted to me. And you know what? Every guy who is attracted to you won't do what you want, won't be what you want, won't even act how you want. But the responsibility is yours to decide who you're going to let in and who you're going to pass on respectfully. And yeah, I do think that women deserve to get our revenge, however that looks. And it still won't be enough anyway, because nothing will ever compare to living in a world where women are murdered for just being women, sexually assaulted for just being women. You know, if you go somewhere like Pakistan, right? I heard that Pakistan has got the highest statistics for acid attacks against women who decline men's advances. I saw this really scary video recently that was going around on the internet of this man who was like breaking things, like breaking chairs, fighting people, picking up sharp objects to throw because a woman declined his advances. Like, this is what we're having to deal with, and then you want to try and make feminism marketable to men. It's literally the same thing that we're seeing where black people are trying to make black liberation marketable to white people. Like, it's not going to work. A true revolution cannot be marketable. Once we can establish that and truly understand what that sentence means, then we can sit and review what we call feminism and ask ourselves, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, we can ask ourselves, is this feminism that you've been doing, has it worked for you? Show me how it's worked out for you. Let me see. Because till this day, I've been getting messages from women telling me that they feel guilty about asking men for money. Asking men for money doesn't even touch the brink of revenge. Men should be giving you money anyway. Like, what the hell? What the hell? If he's got a lot of money and he's attracted to you, why is he not giving you none of that? I don't get it. Because he wants to press your breast though. I don't get why he wouldn't want to be generous towards you. Like, sit with that, chew on that, think about it. Somebody has something that they know that you'd benefit from. They want to benefit from you, but they don't want you to benefit from them. How does that work? And then you tell yourself that it's not feminist to take money from men. So is it feminist to just like let men have their way with you? Like, someone has to come and explain to me, because I'm so bored. I'm so bored of the whole like using feminism to make excuses as to why you're not prepared to take action for your own life. Like, at some point, something has to give, innit? And at some point, I think women need to accept, like I said at the beginning of this episode, at some point, women need to accept that not everything we do is going to be seen as feminist, and that's okay, innit? Like, similarly, it's not feminist for me to run for the bus. I'm just running for the bus. In that same breath, it's not feminist necessarily for me to tell that man to go back to your mum's house. Don't you dare look at my breast again. It might not be seen as feminist to say that, but I don't care. I'm going to talk my shit though. Like, I know what I like. I like what I like. Sometimes for me, it feels like I'm experiencing a small semblance of justice when I snatch money out of a guy's hand who is giving me money. And this is not something I do every single day. Let me make it clear. Like, I'm literally recounting. There's this guy who, I won't say he's a sub of mine, but we've gone to a few events together in the context of me being a dom and him being a sub. And when he's giving me money, it's not that he's not paying me for a service. It's called a tribute, which is, how would I explain what a tribute is? Oh my God. A tribute is like basically a token of appreciation, usually in cash form. So he opened his wallet, he took out some cash, and that cash amounted to like £40. But I saw that there was still more cash in his wallet. So when he gave me the £40, first of all, I did snatch it. And then I looked at him and I was like, is that all you're going to give me? Are you okay? And then with a sulky face, he took more cash out of his wallet and gave me, I think it came to like £60 that I left with. I don't give a fuck. Do you know, every day a woman is being coerced into doing something she doesn't want to do. This man wasn't even in a position where he's scared for his life, and that's why he gave me the extra £20 upon the £40 he gave me. He gave me the £60 in total because he felt bullied and intimidated. Good, as you should. And guess what? He was a white man. Good, as you should, because white men owe black women reparations. £40, I wouldn't even consider that tangible reparations, but it's a start. £60, still wouldn't consider that tangible reparations. Still a start though. The point I'm making is sometimes you get to a stage with men, especially in certain environments, like when you're a dom and the guy's a sub, you get to a certain stage where you don't give a fuck about playing nice. Because when you're a dom, you learn that this is not about being nice. This is about being consistent with what your values are. And when you see behavior that's out of line, you check that behavior right there and then. When you know you want something, you ask a guy to do it and you snatch the money from him because it's funny. And yes, I do enjoy the feeling of bullying men who enjoy being bullied by powerful, beautiful women. Everybody wins. And I do feel like, you know what? Everybody won't win when it comes to feminism. Everybody won't win when it comes to seeking liberation, but you need to make sure that you win and you get to define that on your own terms. Nobody gets to tell you how to be empowered. No, even me, if you heard this episode up until this point and you are vehemently in disagreement with everything that I've said, that is fine. That is for you to define. You decide what your own life is going to look like, but don't cry, don't beg, don't come to me when you choose to make decisions that you know are not in line with what your true self-worth is, because that's where your own responsibility lies. And I do strongly believe that putting self-worth into action takes a lot more work than feminism itself. Because, you know, feminism can be a cop-out, innit? Like, why I say it can be a cop-out is because the majority of feminism is still rooted in making men feel comfortable in your own liberation process. But when it comes to being what an empowered woman actually embodies, when it comes to being a boss on your own terms, especially if you're someone that dates men, yeah, you're going to have to learn to put some bass in your voice. You're going to have to learn to be stern even when you're a bit scared. You're going to have to learn that if you cower into the fear of being seen as a bad woman, or if you slip into that anxiety of like, oh, I don't want him to not like me anymore, you're not going to win. You're going to end up in situations where you're just kind of like, oh, meh, I guess I'm not single, so I guess this is what it's meant to feel like. No, it can be even better than you thought it would be. But sometimes you never get to experience what that better looks like because too early on you handed your power away because you wanted to be so badly liked by men who will literally nut inside of socks and leave that sock to become crispy, and they won't even put it in the washing machine because they're pretending that they don't know how to use the washing machine. Is that life? Is that the life you want for yourself?